Welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman. Today, I got a real treat for you. His name is Scott Andrews, and he is the Assistant City Manager at the beautiful city of Bakersfield in wonderful California. Scott, say what's up to everybody.
Hey, Joseph, how you doing? Thanks for having me today. I am grateful for this opportunity and looking forward to getting to know you and share a little bit about me as well.
Sure. So let's talk about it, man. You're the assistant city manager of Bakersfield, California. I'm from Northern California, so I know Bakersfield. Like I'm from Brent or Pittsburgh, Brentwood area.
Yeah.
And Bakersfield is kind of that Central Valley, Central California. So how did you end up in Bakersfield and as the city manager of Bakersfield? Like what was your trajectory from, let's say, high school, college to where you're at today?
Yeah, absolutely. So for starters, I've always loved local government. I mean, I was a nerdy kid playing SimCity and Civilization growing up. So this has kind of come full circle. I'm from the Tampa area. And in fact, my first 11 years in government were in recreation at the same facility. I snuck in as a kid. I ended up working there in 11 years, put myself through school at night. And that 4-year degree took me 10 years. I definitely a non-traditional path, but found my way, had some good mentors, and kind of climbed the ladder then, diversified to marketing, events, communications downtown, and then economic development. So I then moved to Georgia, served 3 different organizations there. And Smyrna, where the Atlanta Braves play, was my first assistant city manager opportunity. And you plop down a championship competing team 3 miles from City Hall. It was a career-changing move. And then I went on to be city manager in East Atlanta and Covington, and really just wanted to grow a little bit. Like I said, I'm from Central Florida, so Shaq didn't get a championship until he left Florida and came out to California. So I see myself in the same way. Bakersfield is a huge city. We're 46th largest in the U.S., almost 500,000 residents. I don't think people realize that. We're
Wow.
152
I didn't know
square
that.
miles. Yeah, so
Yeah.
for all the public works folks, 152 square miles of infrastructure, it's a nightmare sometimes.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know Bakersfield was. I knew it was kind of sprawling. I know that whole, isn't there a light rail, like a high speed train that's supposed to happen from the Bay Area to
Yeah,
LA, like through Bakersfield, Fresno? Is that correct?
absolutely. Coming south to us, and it's going to be a game changer. It's not on the timeline that
Yeah.
everyone says it is, realistically, but it is happening.
Sure. So you came from Tampa, went to Georgia, and then found your way out here. You talked about one thing, which was kind of, I noticed probably back in 2000 and I don't know 2010, a lot of cities around the country were just spicing up and sprucing up their downtown area, because the downtown area, it can kind of get, I wouldn't say pushed by the wayside, but it kind of gets left to its own, this 20 stores downtown, they'll be all right. They're the downtown stores. But talk to us about what like kind of the push was to get a couple of those cities you were at, in the downtown spruced up a little bit.
Absolutely. So I had the rare opportunity. I mentioned Smyrna, and you plop a World Championship baseball team down next to City Hall, and
Yeah.
it transformed the whole area.
Yeah.
And other organizations been able to build out with a blank canvas and buy up the properties around it and build out a city. We did that in Sugar Hill, where we created a whole identity for City Hall. But I think, to your point, downtowns are your urban core, and a lot of times it's where cities get their whole brand and image and identity from. So what we've done historically is, we punted those big capital projects that all your listeners know so well, but ultimately the growth has just been growing and growing, and we weren't fully ready. So we're in this reset mode where we're looking at 20, 30 years out from now, because we just experienced this huge boom. But I think all of us are sitting back now and saying, what's next? And a lot of that stems from downtown areas, and density is not seen as a 4-letter word the way it was in the past. So people are building up instead of out and saving some money on the infrastructure.
Yeah. Interesting. Building up instead of building out does save you a little bit, infrastructure wise. Because I'm in a city now, it's called Peoria, Arizona. It's one of those, like, Arizona had the valley, the Phoenix area, then it just sprawled from there. So like everywhere I look, you got like Panda Express, Chipotle, you got kind of that, that strip mall-y type new age. You got your restaurants like Five Guys. It is nothing really like that downtown, heartfelt vibe. So would you say that that's kind of I wouldn't say a cheaply way, but a way to keep people, I guess, outside of their home, but it doesn't really give you that same vibe as a downtown. Like, how can we disrupt that and say like, hey, we need more mom and pops, we need more small shops, like instead of just these big box, Target, Walmart, Costco.
No, you're absolutely right, and we've seen this almost renaissance of sorts where you and I are probably roughly around the same age, and we said all the same things probably growing up. We don't want to live in the suburbs, we want that city life. But what people are doing now is trying to find the best of both worlds and building
Yeah,
out their suburban downtown. So you have these identities, and you mentioned Arizona, so you can look as far west as Buckeye or as
yeah,
far east as all over. I mean, everywhere is building out, and people want a sense of community where they're at. And a lot of times that comes through your downtown center. And
yeah,
it may not be the traditional path of historic downtown buildings. It was in the past. You may have a Panda Express sprinkled in a couple blocks out. But people really crave that sense of place, and that's
yeah.
a lot of times where the downtowns come in.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So walk us through what a normal day is like for Scott Andrews. Like you're assistant city manager, you're in Bakersfield. So tell us like what a normal random Tuesday is like for you. What are you doing all day?
Yeah, that's a good question, and this will be by far my most exciting meeting in the day. But uh,
Thank you,
joking
thank you.
aside, so we've got 2,000 employees here, and that
Wow.
our largest being Public Works, and a little bit of everything every day. So you're going to have your community outreach and Rotary at some point in the middle of the
Yeah,
day. You got to be involved in the community. As someone like myself that didn't grow up here, you've got to be entrenched in the community, or else people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I think that's the big thing, especially folks that are climbing the ladder and
yeah,
they leave their community. I mean, you've got to show you're all in, or else your efforts are going to be fruitless, and it's going to take that community buy-in to really get it. So I focus a lot of my efforts outward, whether that's the Boys and Girls Clubs or Rotary or Sister
hmm,
City board meetings. So having a presence there helps to really amplify what you're doing, and
yeah,
you're the walking billboard for all you do. So if you don't
yeah,
stand for what you're doing, no one else will help you out. So the focus is internal, probably 70% of the day, and outward the other 30%. So no day's the same, probably similar
yeah,
to everyone listening in here, but the variety as the number two guy as compared to when I was a city manager in the past. I think a lot of your focus goes on other duties as assigned. I think
yeah.
a lot of us can relate to that, and picking up the phone, dealing with issues and the things that nobody wants to deal with. If you make that your hallmark and calling card, you'll keep climbing.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting because Rotary speaks pretty heavy with me. I was a part of Rotary for about 8 years in Walnut Creek, California. Past president, did the whole go to the convention, the big national one. I think it was in Toronto.
Right.
And great group, and I loved it. It's one of those functions of, service above self. That's kind of one of the main tenets of it. And you get in front of leaders and shakers and movers in the community. So speak to the power of yourself kind of representing the city and then going to Rotary. Like give us I guess, motivate everybody else who's out there to say, hey, get involved with your local social organizations to kind of change the thought or change the stigma of the city.
Absolutely. And that's speaking of stigmas, that's one of the things. I mean, you're probably being kind, but that's one of the challenges in Bakersfield overall. A lot of people don't realize we're so large, or we
Yeah,
have these massive projects like high-speed rail and everything coming in. Everything we do as leaders, you're representing your organization. You don't really ever punch out. So when you are at the grocery store, you're at Rotary, Kiwanis, whatever you're doing, you are representing your city at all times. It doesn't matter if you have a logo on your shirt or not. So that power of networking and connecting with people, your reputation should precede you before you arrive anywhere. So people, if you're not networking, if you're not entrenched in your professional associations, you're really missing out. I think that's a critical component. You need to invest in yourself, even if your organization isn't fully doing so.
sure. Thanks for speaking on that. All right, so let's say you had to mentor young Scott, and young Scott's like, man, Old OG Scott, older Scott, more seasoned Scott. What skill set should I pick up to be good at what you're currently doing today? What would that skill set be?
Yeah, I think we're all taught to learn and research and go to school or go to trade school. Your EQ is what's going to set you apart, especially to climb your ladder. Your emotional intelligence is going to be what really separates you from the next person. And that stands out in your interviews and in your daily habits. I think your ability to connect with people and be your authentic self. We're all going to say dumb stuff. I'm probably going to stutter or do an or ah at some point in here. But I think that ability to connect with people know you're being real. You get the benefit of the doubt 90% of the time. So be authentically you. No one is youer than you, as Dr. Seuss once said. So I think just be true to yourself. And we're all in this world together. We're all hide behind a smile, and we're just doing the best we can every day. So I
Sure.
think that's the advice I would tell younger Scott is thicken your skin. Don't worry about what other people think and be authentically you.
Yeah, yeah, love it. All right, so I need a story from you. I need a story from Scott, and when something went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
Absolutely. We could go into 3 hours of my mistakes, but I think one that stands out that could have really gotten all of us in trouble in a former city was we were at a town hall charrette, very intense environment because we're talking about revitalizing a downtown building, a historic downtown building where half the council members played baseball growing up as a kid, and a lot of nostalgia involved. So we're getting roasted, and I'm city manager at this point, so we're trying to hear the public out and get their impact or feedback on what the building may be and if we repurposed it. So the big mistake comes in where I let go of the microphone. I go to hand it to a citizen in the crowd. He snatches it up and it turned into a roast. He wouldn't give it back. And then he started to pass the microphone around the crowd. And he's getting on me, two or three of the council members. And it turned into just a keep away of the microphone. So rookie move on my part, but hold that mic out there for people, folks. Don't ever give it up.
Yeah. So funny. I could see there, like, hey, he's passing on to his buddy to continue the roast. How do you, so in those types of situations, because I know you want to be able to hear from the constituents, you want to be able to hear from the city members, but you don't necessarily want to hear from them, but you want them to feel heard, if that makes sense.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
what's that line you dance on and say, hey guys, like tell us what what your thoughts and comments and concerns are, but like be nice about it or be respectful or because it can get nasty.
Absolutely. Keyboard warrior culture is
Yeah.
amplified here in the last 5, 10 years. So I think you always want people to feel heard. And if they feel like that you're just checking a box, again, this goes back to authenticity, then they're
Yeah.
going to let you have it. So I think what I try to do is direct traffic. So you tell them, what are your thoughts on blah, 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 and be very specific. And what should this building be utilized? Do you think this, or this? And maybe direct them a little bit so they're not deviating from your preferred option. So
Sure.
um,
Yeah.
that would probably be the best thing. And then next part is third party validation. You have your experts there the same way we would do a parking study, a traffic study, or something else. They don't always want to hear what the city has to say. They want to hear what a third party person that does this all over the U.S. says.
Ah, interesting. It's a good point. That's a good point. All right. So, how does Scott keep showing up better, better, and better? Like, what's your personal and professional development regimen like? How do you keep showing up every year better and better?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think professionally, you always continue investing in yourself, get involved in your associations, making sure that you're in APWAs and different uh, professional associations, and then you do that at the regional level as well, and then have a presence in your community. The more you feel involved in your community, the better work you're going to do because you're going to take pride in it because you see the way it's impacting your neighbors, your residents. And just professionally, wow, we're all juggling 20 things. We got a family. As we get older, for me, it's Peloton every morning and hit the gym on lunch break. And that's my sanity. It's not about vanity. It's just keeping my mind right. And,
Yeah.
taking that vacation. I think 15 years ago, people would say, oh, it was the rigid work hustle mentality and, take pride in your work ethic for sure, but take that vacation too. I think 20 years from now, the only people who are going to remember that you worked every single day will be your kids. So I think that's
Yeah.
something powerful to file away is that work-life balance. We work for our families and not the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because I have seen that shift from that hustle mentality to, I never take my vacation. Always, and now it's like, dude, like, all of us have been through the experience of like we leave a job, we get fired, leave. However, two weeks later, maybe less than that, they're
Right.
replacing you with somebody else. Nobody calls your phone anymore. You're pretty much out of the whole loop, and it's like, ooh, that's how they really feel about me. So now I have to take care of myself. So it's
Absolutely.
interesting you said because it's shifting, but I wonder like what it's going to look like 40, 50 years from now.
Right.
Will,
Right.
will everybody be on vacation forever indefinitely?
Yeah. Who knows?
We might need to reel it back in a little bit, just a little bit. All right. So let's say I ask one of your friends, like somebody that knows you, but they don't work with you. I said, what does Scott do all day? Like, what value does he add to Bakersfield? What would they get totally wrong in answering that question? Like, what's some of the
Mhm.
biggest misconceptions about an assistant city manager?
Probably that you're just hanging out with the city manager and council members all day when in reality you're just running. You might high five in the hallway with your boss one day, but I think you get that 1 hour with it. We're all just hustling. We're all spokes on a bicycle wheel. We're playing our part. And then maybe once a week you get that combined 1 hour together to kind of debrief. Other than that, it's an elevator ride down, just you get that 30 seconds in. I think we're all just hustling so much that people don't sit around and converse the way that people might imagine. And all the government employee jokes, five of us watching one guy dig a hole and all that stuff. It's it's just crazy. Government's gotten the worst rap in the last, I don't know, let's call it 10 years. And that stems from the federal level, where I think a lot of us choose the local level because we're closest to it. We can make the biggest impact in our community and not get caught up in the red versus blue and all this ridiculousness. This is where it matters the most. This is where you shape your community.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never really thought of that, but when people think government, you think of like Capitol Hill, like the
Yeah,
bickering, the fighting, red versus blue, all that. But I can see how people can, I guess, trickle it down to local. But it's like, no, the guy that's flushing your sewer line like actually does a thing for you, and and who knows what these guys in Capitol Hill are actually doing for us,
right,
like,
right.
or not for us or against us. We don't know, but like I don't see why the city gets such a bad rap when like they're just like if the city walked away for a day, yeah, let's see how that goes. you know, let's see how that
Absolutely.
pans out.
Absolutely.
For sure. All right, let's say Scott's commissioned to put up a billboard, and this billboard is in the most trafficked area of Bakersfield. What ask of your community, just in regards to, let's say, public works, would you put on this billboard?
Yeah, I think public works is so underappreciated. I think we saw during COVID in particular, we saw police and fire. They should get their round of applause. I mean, they never stopped. We saw nurses get a pat on the back, and doctors and people that may not have got so much in the past. But I think public works employees. I mean, you guys are the most essential of all. I mean, our largest department by far is PW and those critical projects. And then the garbage isn't going to take care of itself. The streets aren't going to take care of themselves. So I think, man, just having a Vata boy for public works who tends to be the most underappreciated, but probably most essential of all of our areas. So that billboard would be something along the lines of impacting everyone. I think kindness is always the answer. I think it may sound corny and you were probably thinking for something else, but I think everyone is battling something that none of us knows anything about. If we could do a community-wide kindness campaign where you're recognizing not just your public works and city staff, but everybody, I think we've lost touch with a lot of things. We're always looking down at our phone rather than looking up at each other. We've lost a lot of human connection, and I think we need to find a way to get that balance back. We do it with our kids and we take their phones from them so they focus a little more on what's in front. I think all of us probably need to do the same and just if we
Sure.
turn off the news and look to our neighbor, we have a lot more in common than we don't.
Yeah, yeah. Good point. I love it, man. You're preaching, man. I love it. All right. So I'd like to leave a space on the show for you to thank mentors that you had along your journey. And then also give a word of inspiration and motivation to your countrywide industry counterpart, assistant city managers.
Absolutely. I'm nothing but the result of hard work and amazing mentors. I told you I didn't have a glorious start to my career. That 4-year degree took me better part of a decade, but then I did have some amazing mentors in my early career in the city of Temple Terrace, to Jerry Sieber. And then actually I flew back, home to Atlanta this past weekend to see 3 of the cities that I did work in previously. So I got to see my main mentor, Paul Radford in Sugar Hill, who's like the godfather. He would beat me down to build me up, and he cut you to your soul, but it was always from a good place. So you knew that it was coming from some place of kindness and effort and care. So I think that those are kind of my key mentors. And I went to Smyrna. I had Tammy Sadler Jones, and that was my first city manager assignment. And we all dream big, right? We want a lot, but I don't think we always know, and we certainly aren't ready for our dream job when we get it. But I would tell everyone listening, if you're 70% ready, absolutely go for it, because you're never going to be ready for the job that when you get it. You're going to have to step up and grow into that job. Just absolutely. And when you get there, reach back down, pay it forward. To be a good mentor, you should be a good mentee as well. And that whole cycle there, listen and give and pay it forward, because again, everyone has something to offer, and making sure we're paying it forward to the next generation is critically important.
Sure. And then the second part of the question, inspiration, motivation to your city manager counterparts.
Yeah, I think these are different times than we've ever experienced in the past. And if you're number 2, be there for that number 1. Support them no matter what. Get behind closed doors and tell them exactly what you think. Don't tell them what you think they need to hear, because that is your role. And they may not listen to you 70% of the time. You're going to walk out, probably not get your way, but that doesn't matter. You go and you toe that line, and then you tell your boss what you think they need to hear. And that's your role. It's a hard job. I think anyone that's a number 2, that is your pivotal role. If you're a number 1, you're leading your department, you're leading your city, whatever that looks like. You got to be bold. You got to look everyone in the eye, even if you had that little bit of doubt, and you need to be the one with conviction, rallying the troops. You got to inspire people. Nobody wants to lead by iron fist the way it used to be. I think the difference is now you have to lead the charge from the front and show them you're in it. So that would be the advice I'd give is, again, lead from your heart, lead with love.
Let's say I'm coming to Bakersfield and I text you ahead of time. I'm like, hey, Scott, where can I go in Bakersfield to get the best burger in town? Where are you going to send me?
Joseph, I would immediately say, I'm glad you like burgers, but this is Bakersfield and we are getting Mexican food, sir.
Nah.
And I would just totally deviate, and we would go on a tour, and we would do breakfast burritos by morning from grandma's,
Okay.
and then we'd go down to Arizona Cafe, and then we'd take you for some niche novelty stuff later in the day. But as much as I love a burger, as much as anyone, I would tell you to get some the best Mexican food here.
Okay. I like it. It is Bakersfield for sure. All right, Scott. Thank you for hopping on the podcast, man. Thank you for sharing your wealth of information and knowledge. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Scott, any final words before we get out of here?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, Joseph. And if I can ever be of assistance to you or any of your listeners, feel free to reach out to me directly. And I'm sure Joseph will plug my information here. And it's been a great opportunity. Thank you.
Sweet. Well, thanks for hopping on. This has been the Public Works Podcast, and thank you for tuning in.